Mommy.
The little girl's voice shattered through the rain like a bullet, sharp, desperate, impossible to ignore. "Mummy!" she screamed, her tiny fingers gripping Isabella's legs with a force that defied her small frame. Isabella looked down at the child, then up at the man emerging from the black SUV, Kang Minho, Seoul's most feared mafia boss, his eyes cold as steel until they found hers. In that instant, something cracked open inside his chest, something ancient and consuming, and he knew with absolute certainty that this woman holding his daughter would either save him or destroy him completely. Welcome to K Fairy Tales Stories, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. The rain was coming down in sheets when Isabella's first saw her. A little girl, no more than 4 years old, standing alone outside the Seoul Women's Shelter where Isabella volunteered every Thursday evening. The child wore an expensive pink coat, her hair in perfect pigtails, but her face was streaked with tears and rain. Isabella rushed outside, her nurse's instincts kicking in immediately. "Sweetheart, where's your mother?" she asked in Korean, kneeling to the child's level despite the puddles soaking through her jeans. The girl's lower lip trembled. "I don't have a mummy, I want a mummy." Her voice was small but determined, and something in those words pierced straight through Isabella's carefully constructed walls. Before Isabella could respond, the street exploded with activity. 3 black SUVs screeched to a halt, men in dark suits pouring out like water from a broken dam. They moved with military precision, scanning the area with barely concealed weapons. The child's face lit up. "Appa," she pointed at the man stepping out of the center vehicle. Kang Minho was the kind of man who made rooms go silent. Tall, broad-shouldered, with features carved from marble and eyes that could freeze blood. His suit probably cost more than Isabella's yearly salary, perfectly tailored to a body that radiated lethal control. But when he saw his daughter, something softened in those dangerous eyes. "Seoyeon," he said, his voice rough with relief. Then his gaze shifted to Isabella and the world tilted. For 3 seconds that felt like eternity, they stared at each other. Isabella felt pinned by those dark eyes, felt something shift deep in her chest like tectonic plates rearranging. She'd never believed in love at first sight, but this wasn't love. This was recognition, like her soul had been waiting for this moment without her knowledge. "Mummy," Seoyeon suddenly declared, wrapping her small arms around Isabella's leg. "I found a mummy." Minho went absolutely still. His men exchanged nervous glances, but he raised a hand, silencing them without words. He moved closer, each step deliberate, predatory, until he stood directly in front of Isabella. "Who are you?" His English was perfect, accented but precise, and carried the weight of a man used to getting answers immediately. Isabella straightened, meeting his gaze despite the intimidation radiating from him. "Isabella's, I volunteer here. Your daughter was standing alone in the rain." "Seoyeon doesn't wander," Minho said flatly, but his eyes swept over his daughter, checking for injuries with a thoroughness that betrayed deep love beneath the cold exterior. "Someone will be fired for this." "Someone almost lost a child," Isabella corrected, her Nigerian accent thickening with emotion. "Maybe focus on that instead of firing people." The men around them tensed. Apparently, no one spoke to Kang Minho that way, but Minho's lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it had reached his eyes. "You're brave," he crouched beside his daughter. "Seoyeon, we need to go home." "No," the little girl's grip tightened on Isabella's leg. "She's my mummy now. Grandmother said you would find me a new mummy, and I found her first." Minho's jaw clenched. He looked up at Isabella, and she saw something raw flash across his face before the mask returned. "I apologize for the inconvenience. Seoyeon's mother died 2 years ago. She's been asking for a new one." Isabella's heart cracked. She knew that pain. She'd lost her own mother 5 years ago. "I'm sorry," she said softly, placing her hand on Seoyeon's head. "That must be very hard." Something shifted in Minho's expression. Vulnerability, quickly hidden, but she'd seen it. "Seoyeon, this woman has her own life," he said gently, his tone completely different when addressing his daughter. "She can't be your mother." "But I love her already." Seoyeon's eyes filled with tears. "She smells like cookies and she's warm and she didn't leave me alone." Minho stood abruptly, running his hand through his rain-dampened hair. When he looked at Isabella again, there was something desperate in his gaze. "How much?" Isabella blinked. "Excuse me. How much money would it take for you to have dinner with us? One dinner. Let her see that you're a real person, not a fairy tale, and then she'll let go of this fantasy." "I'm not for sale," Isabella said coldly. "Everyone has a price." His voice was flat, matter-of-fact. "Name yours." Isabella should have been insulted. Instead, she felt sad for this man who clearly loved his daughter but thought everything could be bought. "The price is that you ask nicely, without trying to buy me." Minho stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. Then, slowly, something changed in his posture. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Isabella Ez, would you please join my daughter and me for dinner? She clearly feels safe with you, and I would like to know why." The next evening, Isabella found herself in the back of a luxury car, heading to a restaurant she'd only seen in magazines. Minho sat across from her, silent and watchful, while Seoyeon chattered endlessly about her toys, her room, her grandmother who was very scary but loves me. The restaurant was empty except for them. Minho had rented the entire place. "Is this normal for you?" Isabella asked, gesturing around. "Buying out restaurants. Privacy is necessary in my line of work." He poured her wine with movements that were almost hypnotic in their precision. "What line of work is that?" "Import-export." The lie was smooth, practiced. "International trade." Isabella had grown up in Lagos. She knew what men like him really did, but she didn't push. Instead, she turned her attention to Seoyeon, who was explaining why pink was the best color in the universe. Throughout dinner, Isabella caught Minho watching her with an intensity that made her skin warm. Not just watching, studying, like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. When Seoyeon laughed at something Isabella said, his expression softened in a way that transformed his entire face. After dinner, as they walked to the car, Seoyeon grabbed both their hands. "We're a family now," she announced. Minho's hand was warm, strong, and when his fingers brushed against Isabella's, electricity sparked between them. He felt it too. She saw his eyes widen slightly, saw him look down at their joined hands like they held secrets. "One dinner was the agreement," he said quietly, once Seoyeon was buckled into her car seat. "I know." Isabella pulled her hand away, immediately missing his warmth. "But she's going to cry when you leave." There was something in his voice, something that suggested he might cry too, though men like him probably didn't cry. "Then maybe we could do this again," Isabella heard herself say. "I volunteer at the shelter on Thursdays. If you're nearby, you could bring her by." Minho's eyes searched hers. "Why would you do that?" "Because she's a little girl who lost her mother, and I know what that feels like." 2 weeks passed. Every Thursday, Minho brought Seoyeon to the shelter. He'd stay, watching from a distance while Isabella and his daughter colored or played games. Sometimes other children would join them, and Isabella would see Minho's expression soften watching her interact with them all. On the third Thursday, one of Isabella's co-workers pulled her aside. "Do you know who that man is? Kang Minho runs half of Seoul's underground. He's dangerous, Isabella." "He's a father who loves his daughter," Isabella replied, but unease settled in her stomach. That evening, as Minho drove her home, a routine that had developed naturally, she finally asked, "Tell me the truth. What do you really do?" His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You don't want to know." "I wouldn't ask if I didn't want to know." Minho pulled the car over, turning to face her fully. "I run an organization that operates outside the law. I make decisions that keep people in line. I do things that would make you run from me if you had any sense." "Have you killed people?" Her voice was steady despite her racing heart. "Yes." No hesitation, no apology. Isabella should have demanded he let her out, should have cut all contact. Instead, she asked, "Do you hurt innocent people?" "No." His eyes held hers. "Never. I have rules, lines I don't cross. But I'm not a good man, Isabella. I'm the monster that keeps worse monsters in check." "And Seoyeon." His expression transformed, became almost tender. "She's the only pure thing in my life, the only reason I still believe in God." Isabella reached out, placed her hand on his arm. his muscle tensed under her touch. "Thank you for being honest." "You're not afraid." He sounded genuinely confused. "I grew up in Lagos. I know what survival looks like. I know the difference between men who choose violence because they enjoy it and men who choose it to protect what they love." She squeezed his arm gently. "You're the second kind." Minho caught her hand, held it against his arm. "You should run from me anyway." "Probably," she smiled. "But your daughter needs consistency, and I made her a promise to teach her how to braid hair." Something blazed in his eyes, something that made Isabella's breath catch. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles that sent heat racing through her veins. "You're dangerous, Isabella Ez." "So are you, Kang Minho." The following week, Minho invited her to his home. The mansion was stunning, all modern lines and expensive taste, but Seoyeon's room was pure little girl magic. Pink walls, stuffed animals everywhere, toys scattered like treasures. "She's happy lately," Minho's mother said, appearing in the doorway. She was elegant, sharp-eyed, and clearly suspicious. "Because of you." "I just spend time with her," Isabella replied carefully. "My son watches you like your water and he's dying of thirst." The older woman's gaze was penetrating. "Do you know what you're getting into?" "I'm not getting into anything. I'm just—" "Lying to yourself," Minho's mother cut her off. "I see how you look at him too, like he's the son and you're trying not to get burned." She paused. "He's my son and I love him, but he's right when he says he's dangerous. Not to you, he'd die before hurting you, but the life he lives, the enemies he has, they won't hesitate to use you against him." "Then maybe I should stop coming," Isabella said quietly. "Maybe you should." The older woman's expression softened. "But you won't, because you're already in love with him, even if you haven't admitted it yet." That night, Minho drove Isabella home again. The car felt smaller somehow, the air charged with everything unsaid. "My mother spoke to you," he said, not a question. "She warned me about your life." "She's right, too. I've made a lot of enemies, Isabella. People who would hurt anyone I care about just to get to me." "Is that what I am? Someone you care about?" Minho pulled into her apartment complex parking lot but didn't turn off the engine. "You're someone I can't stop thinking about. Someone who makes me want to be better than I am. Someone I dream about even though I know I shouldn't." Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs. "Minho, I'm falling in love with you." The words were raw, honest. "I've been falling since the moment Seoyeon called you mummy and you didn't run away. Since you looked at me knowing what I am and didn't flinch. Since you held my hand in that restaurant and I felt peace for the first time in years." "This is crazy," Isabella whispered. "We barely know each other." "I know you volunteer at a shelter even though you work 60-hour weeks as a nurse. I know you send half your paycheck to your family in Nigeria. I know you cry during sad movies but pretend you don't. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar and you hate the cold. I know the sound of your laugh makes Seoyeon happy and makes me feel like I could be human again." He turned to face her fully. "Tell me what I don't know and I'll learn it. Tell me to stay away and I'll try. Tell me you don't feel this thing between us, and I'll know you're lying." Isabella couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the pull toward this man who was everything dangerous and everything she wanted. "I feel it," she admitted. "It terrifies me." Minho reached out, cupped her face with a tenderness that contradicted everything she knew about him. "Good. Fear keeps you careful, but don't let it keep you from me." Then he kissed her, and the world caught fire. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, consuming, like he was drowning and she was air. His hand tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and Isabella went willingly, her hands fisting in his shirt. He tasted like whiskey and danger and something sweet she couldn't name. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "Come to dinner tomorrow," he said against her lips. "A real date, just us." "What about Seoyeon?" "My mother will watch her. I want you to myself for one night. Let me show you who I am when I'm not being a father or a boss. Let me just be Minho with you." The next evening, Minho picked her up wearing dark slacks and a black shirt that made him look like sin personified. He took her to a rooftop restaurant with a view of Seoul's skyline, and for the first time, she saw him relaxed, almost playful. "Tell me about Lagos," he said over wine. "What was it like growing up there?" Isabella shared stories of her childhood, of her mother's cooking and her father's terrible jokes, of the markets and the music and the chaos she'd loved. Minho listened like every word mattered, asked questions that showed he was truly interested. "Why did you leave?" he asked. "I wanted to see the world, experience something different, and after my mother died, home felt too empty." She paused. "What about you? Have you always lived this life?" Minho's expression darkened. "I inherited my father's organization when I was 22. He died in a war with a rival gang, and suddenly I was responsible for 200 people's livelihoods. I could have walked away, but they would have been slaughtered." He stared at his glass. "So I became what I needed to be, harder, colder, more ruthless than my father ever was, and I kept them alive." "That must have been lonely." "It was," he met her eyes, "until now." After dinner, they walked along the Han River, the city lights reflecting off the water like fallen stars. Minho took her hand, and Isabella let him, their fingers interlacing perfectly. "I need to tell you something," he said suddenly. "I have enemies who would use you against me if they knew you mattered to me. I've already increased security around your apartment, your hospital, anywhere you go regularly." "Minho, you can't just—" "I can and I will." His voice was firm. "I won't let anyone hurt you because of me." "What if I don't want to live under surveillance?" "Then I'll teach you to defend yourself. I'll give you weapons and training and everything you need to feel safe, but I won't apologize for protecting you." He stopped, pulled her to face him. "You're mine now, Isabella. Maybe that's selfish, maybe it's wrong, but I can't walk away from you any more than I can stop breathing." Isabella should have protested the possessiveness, the way he claimed her like she was his already. Instead, heat pooled in her stomach. "I'm not yours." "Aren't you?" He backed her against a tree, his body caging hers in a way that made her feel small and safe and electrified all at once. "Your heart is racing. Your pupils are dilated. You haven't let go of my hand once tonight." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "Tell me you don't feel this, and I'll let you go." "I can't." The admission felt like surrender and victory all at once. Minho's hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up. "Then let me have you. Let me keep you. Let me show you what it means to be loved by a monster." He kissed her again, and this time it was slower, deeper, a claiming that left no doubt about his intentions. Isabella melted into him, her hands sliding up his chest to circle his neck. She felt his groan vibrate through her body, felt the rigid control he maintained even as desire burned between them. When they finally broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. "Come home with me tonight." Isabella's breath caught. "Minho." "Not for that, not yet." His voice was strained. "I just want to hold you, want to wake up with you in my arms, want to prove this is real." "Seoyeon is at my mother's house for the weekend. It's just us." His eyes searched hers. "Say yes, Isabella. Let me show you what loving me looks like." She should have said no, should have been sensible. Instead, she whispered, "Yes." Minho's penthouse apartment was masculine and sleek, all dark colors and clean lines. But he led her straight to the bedroom, helped her out of her heels with gentle hands, and then simply pulled her into his arms on the bed. They lay facing each other in the darkness, his hand tracing patterns on her hip over her dress. "I never thought I'd feel this again," he murmured. "This need to have someone close. Seoyeon's mother and I, we were arranged. I cared for her, but there was no passion, no connection like this." "How did she die?" "Childbirth complications. The doctors couldn't save her." His voice roughened. "I held Seoyeon for the first time while my wife took her last breath, and I promised both of them that I would keep our daughter safe, that she would never know the darkness of my world." Isabella placed her hand on his chest, felt his heartbeat strong and steady. "You're a good father." "I'm a selfish one. I want you in her life, in my life, even knowing the danger it brings." He caught her hand, pressed it over his heart. "Stay with me, Isabella, not just tonight, always." "That's crazy. We've known each other 6 weeks." "I knew in 6 seconds." His grip tightened. "The moment Seoyeon called you mummy and you looked at me like I was human instead of a monster, I knew you'd change everything. I just didn't know I'd fall this hard this fast." Isabella felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm scared." "Of me. Of how much I already feel for you. Of losing myself. Of losing you." Minho pulled her closer, tucked her head under his chin. "Then be scared with me. Let's be terrified together. But don't leave me, Isabella. Don't take away the only light I've found in years." They fell asleep tangled together, and Isabella dreamed of a future she'd never dared imagine. Morning came too soon. Isabella woke to find Minho watching her, his expression soft in a way she'd never seen. "I could get used to this," he said, brushing her hair back from her face. "Waking up next to a man who runs Seoul's underworld. Waking up next to the woman I love," he kissed her forehead. "Stay for breakfast, let me make you something." "You cook?" "Barely, but I can manage eggs." They moved to the kitchen, and Isabella watched this feared Mafia boss fumble with a frying pan, cursing in Korean when he cracked an egg wrong. It was so normal, so domestic, that she started laughing. "You're enjoying this," he accused, but his lips curved. "Immensely," she took over, nudging him aside. "Let me before you burn down your own kitchen." As she cooked, Minho wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her head. "This is what I want," he murmured. "Every morning, you in my kitchen, wearing my clothes, letting me hold you." "I'm not wearing your clothes." "You will be. It was a promise." After breakfast, Minho drove her home but pulled over before they reached her apartment complex. His expression had shifted, become serious. "There's something I need to ask you," he said, "and I need you to think carefully before answering." Isabella's heart raced. "Okay." "My world is dangerous. I have enemies who would kill you to hurt me. I have business dealings that are illegal and violent. I can't promise you safety or normalcy or any of the things you deserve." He took her hand. "But I can promise you loyalty, protection, a love that will consume me until my last breath. I can promise you Seoyeon, who already loves you like you're her real mother. And I can promise you myself, all of me, the good and the terrible." "What are you asking?" Minho reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Isabella's breath stopped. "Marry me," he said simply. "Not someday, now, this week. Let me make you mine in every way that matters. Let me protect you with my name, my power, my life." He opened the box, revealing a ring that probably cost more than a house, platinum with a central diamond surrounded by smaller stones. "Be my wife, Isabella. Be Seoyeon's mother. Be the reason I come home every night instead of dying in some alley." "Minho, this is insane." Tears streamed down her face. "We've known each other 6 weeks. I don't care if we've known each other 6 minutes. I know what I feel. I know you're the one." His hand cupped her face. "But if you need time." "Yes," the word burst out of her. He went still. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll be your wife. Yes to all of it, even though it's crazy and fast and probably a disaster waiting to happen." She smiled through her tears. "Yes, because I'm falling in love with you too, and I don't want to fight it anymore." Minho crushed her against him, kissing her like she was oxygen and he'd been suffocating. When he pulled back, his hands shook as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "I'll keep you safe," he promised against her lips. "I'll give you everything. I'll love you until the world ends." "I'm holding you to that." They spent the rest of the day together, Minho making phone calls to arrange a wedding while Isabella's head spun. By evening, he'd secured a private ceremony at his home for the following Saturday, 5 days away. "My mother will help you with dress shopping," he said. "And Seoyeon will be flower girl. She'll lose her mind with happiness." When he finally dropped her at her apartment, he walked her to her door, kissed her slowly, thoroughly. "4 more days," he murmured. "Then you're mine forever." The next morning, Isabella woke to her phone ringing. Minho's mother. "We're going shopping," the older woman announced. "Wedding dress, honeymoon wardrobe, everything. Minho has given me an unlimited budget and strict instructions that you're to have exactly what you want." The day was surreal. Minho's mother, who insisted Isabella call her Iamyeonim, the Korean term for mother-in-law, took her to exclusive boutiques that didn't open to the public. They found a dress that made Isabella cry, fitted, elegant, with delicate lace sleeves and a train that flowed like water. "Minho will lose his mind," Iamyeonim said with satisfaction. "You're beautiful, Isabella, and you're good for my son. I haven't seen him smile since Seoyeon was born." "I still can't believe this is real." "In our world, when you know, you know." The older woman's expression turned serious. But you need to understand what you're marrying into. Minho has protected you so far, but once you're his wife, you become a target. His enemies will see you as weakness. He's warned me. Warnings aren't enough. I'm going to teach you how to survive, how to shoot, how to fight, how to recognize danger. Iyamianim took her hand. I love my son, but I won't let him put you in danger without preparation. Over the next 3 days, Isabella's life became a crash course in survival. Iyamianim taught her to shoot at a private range, taught her basic self-defense, taught her the names and faces of Minho's main rivals. It was terrifying and empowering all at once. Meanwhile, Minho called her every night, his voice rough with longing. I miss you, he'd say. 3 more days feels like 3 years. You saw me this morning when you drove me to work. Not close enough, not the way I want you. The heat in his voice made her shiver. How do you want me? In my bed, under me, around me, mine in every way. He paused. I'm trying to be patient, Isabella, trying to wait until we're married, but you make patience impossible. Then maybe you should stop calling me late at night with that voice. His laugh was dark, promising. After Saturday, I'm never letting you out of my bed. Finally, Saturday arrived. Isabella stood in Minho's home, surrounded by the small group of people he trusted most. Sioyeon bounced with excitement in her flower girl dress, while Iyamianim helped Isabella with last-minute touches. Are you ready? The older woman asked gently. Isabella looked at herself in the mirror. She was about to marry a man she'd known for 6 weeks. A dangerous man who ran an empire of crime. A man who'd stolen her heart so completely she couldn't imagine breathing without him. I'm ready. The ceremony was small, intimate. Minho stood at the front of his living room, transformed into a space of white flowers and candles, wearing a black suit that made him look like dark royalty. When he saw Isabella, his composure cracked. His eyes went wide, his breath caught, and for a moment he just stared like she was something holy. Sihoyeon walked down the aisle first, throwing petals everywhere and grinning. Then Isabella followed, her hand in Iyamianim's, her heart thundering. Minho met her halfway, couldn't wait, and took her hand from his mother's with trembling fingers. You're beautiful, he whispered, voice rough. God, Isabella, you're perfect. The ceremony was brief, the words a blur, but when the officiant said, you may kiss your bride, Minho cupped her face and kissed her like he was sealing a sacred vow. Like she was his religion and this was worship. Mine, he breathed against her lips. Finally mine. The reception was small but joyful. Sihoyeon insisted on sitting between them at dinner, chattering about how she had a real mummy now. Minho's men, the dangerous-looking ones who guarded him, toasted their boss with genuine warmth. Even Iyamianim smiled. But beneath the celebration, tension built. Isabella felt Minho's eyes on her constantly, felt the barely leashed desire in every casual touch. By the time guests started leaving, her skin felt too tight, her body humming with anticipation. Sihoyeon is staying with my mother tonight, Minho murmured in her ear, his breath hot against her skin. We have the house to ourselves. Isabella's pulse raced. Minho. I've been patient, wife. The word was a caress. I've waited, been good, given you time to be sure, but tonight you're mine and I'm done waiting. He led her to his bedroom, their bedroom now, and the door had barely closed before he had her against it, kissing her with barely restrained hunger. His hands were everywhere, mapping her body through the wedding dress, learning her curves. Tell me you want this, he demanded, his lips on her neck. Tell me you're mine. I'm yours, Isabella gasped as his teeth grazed her pulse point. I'm yours, Minho, all of me. He groaned, and whatever control he'd maintained shattered. The world narrowed to sensation, his hands, his mouth, the desperate need consuming them both. The wedding dress came off in careful, reverent movements, then his suit followed, and they discovered each other with trembling hands and whispered promises. The night blurred into heat and closeness, into Minho whispering her name like a prayer, into Isabella learning what it meant to be completely claimed by someone who loved her with terrifying intensity. When they finally collapsed together, exhausted and sated, Minho pulled her against his chest and pressed his lips to her forehead. I love you, he murmured. God, Isabella, I love you so much it scares me. I love you too, she whispered back. My dangerous husband. Your only husband. His arms tightened possessively. No one else gets to have you, ever. Isabella woke before dawn, her body deliciously sore, Minho's arm heavy across her waist. She should have felt trapped. Instead, she felt safe, cherished, home. She tried to slip out of bed to use the bathroom, but Minho's arm tightened, pulling her back against his chest. Where are you going? His voice was rough with sleep and something else, possessiveness, need. Bathroom, I'll be right back. Promise. He sounded almost vulnerable, like he feared she might disappear. I promise. When she returned, he pulled her back into bed, his hands skimming over her skin with reverent touches. Good morning, wife. Good morning, husband. The words still felt surreal. They spent the morning tangled together, relearning each other, until Sioyeon's voice echoed through the house. Appa, Mummy, Halmione brought me home. Minho groaned. I love my daughter, but her timing is terrible. Isabella laughed, grabbing his shirt to cover herself. Get used to it. We have a family now. His expression transformed, became tender and fierce all at once. We have a family, he repeated, like testing the words. I never thought I'd have this again. They dressed quickly and emerged to find Sioyeon bouncing with energy, telling Iamionim about every detail of her sleepover. When she saw Isabella, she launched herself into her arms. Mummy, you're really my mummy now. Isabella caught her, holding tight. I really am. Minho watched them with an expression so full of love it made her chest ache. This was real. This was her life now. A dangerous man, his daughter, a world of violence lurking in shadows, but also this warmth and family and belonging. That afternoon, as they sat together in Minho's backyard watching Sioyeon play, his phone rang. His expression shifted immediately, became hard. I need to take this, he kissed Isabella's forehead. Work. He walked away, and Isabella could hear his voice change, become cold and commanding. The reminder that her husband was someone men feared. When he returned, tension radiated from him. What's wrong? Nothing you need to worry about, but his jaw was tight. Minho, we're married now. Don't shut me out. He studied her for a long moment, then sighed. One of my competitors is making moves, testing boundaries. It's fine. I've handled worse. Competitor was code for enemy. Isabella felt unease settle in her stomach. Is it dangerous? Everything I do is dangerous. He pulled her close. But I've been doing this for years. I know how to handle it. 2 days later, Isabella was leaving the hospital after her shift when someone grabbed her arm. She spun, her training kicking in, ready to fight, but froze when she saw the gun. Mrs. Kang, the man said in accented Korean, you're coming with us. There were 3 of them, surrounding her in the hospital parking garage. Her heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. My husband will kill you for this. Your husband is why we're here. The man smiled, cold and cruel. Lee Sang-hoon sends his regards. Before she could scream, something hit the back of her head and the world went dark. Isabella woke in a dimly lit room, her head pounding. Her hands were tied and cold concrete pressed against her back. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she forced herself to breathe, to think. Iamionim's training echoed in her mind. Stay calm, assess, survive. The door opened, and a man walked in. Older, gray-haired, wearing an expensive suit that was somehow more menacing than Minho's casual power. Mrs. Kang, he said pleasantly, I'm Lee Sang-hoon. Your husband and I have been playing a rather entertaining game for the past 5 years. He wins, I win, back and forth. He circled her slowly. But recently he's gained an advantage. He has something I want, territory, resources, power, so I decided to get something of my own. You. He'll come for me. I'm counting on it, Sang-hoon smiled. That's the point. He'll come rushing in, desperate and sloppy, and I'll destroy him. Then I'll take everything he's built. Isabella's mind raced. She needed to stay alive, needed to give Minho time to find her. He won't be sloppy. You don't know him like I do. Oh, but I do. I know he's been untouchable for years, cold and calculating. Until you. Sang-hoon leaned closer. Love makes men stupid, Mrs. Kang, and your husband loves you very much. Hours passed. Isabella was given water but no food, left alone in the cold room to contemplate her situation. She tested her bonds, finding them tight but not impossible. If she had time, she might be able to work them loose. But time was the one thing she didn't have. She could hear Sang-hoon making calls, setting his trap for Min-ho. Meanwhile, across Seoul, Min-ho stood in his office surrounded by his most trusted men. When Isabella hadn't come home from work, he'd known immediately something was wrong. When her hospital confirmed she never made it to her car, his carefully constructed control shattered. Find her. His voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that came before massacres. I don't care what it costs. I don't care who you have to kill. Find my wife. His second-in-command, Young Tae-yong, stepped forward. We've identified Lee Sang-hoon's involvement. He sent the message an hour ago. He has her, and he wants to trade. Trade what? Your entire operation. Every territory, every business, everything you've built. Hand it over and walk away, or he kills her. Min-ho's hands clenched into fists. He thinks I value my empire more than Isabella's life. Don't you? His consigliere, an old man named Park Jin-soo, spoke carefully. If you give him everything, we all die. Everyone who depends on you, everyone you protect, they'll be slaughtered when Sang-hoon takes power. I don't care. The room went silent. Min-ho looked at each of his men, his expression absolutely certain. I will burn every bridge I've built, destroy everything I've created, hand over my entire empire if it means getting Isabella back alive. She's my wife. The mother of my child, the only person who's made me feel human in years. His voice dropped, became deadly. But first, I'm going to try another way, because I'm going to kill Lee Sang-hoon tonight and no one takes what's mine. They spent 2 hours planning, gathering intelligence, mapping Sang-hoon's location. Min-ho armed himself methodically, guns, knives, anything that would help him tear through his enemy. When Tae-yong tried to suggest waiting for backup, Min-ho cut him off. She's alone and terrified. Every minute she spends in his hands is torture. We move now. The building where Sang-hoon held Isabella was a warehouse on the outskirts of Seoul. Min-ho approached with his core team, 20 men who'd been with him for years. But when they breached the entrance, they found it too easy. It's a trap, Tae-yong warned. I know, Min-ho kept moving. I don't care. They fought through Sang-hoon's guards, Min-ho moving with lethal precision. He'd been trained since childhood to kill, and tonight he held nothing back. Each man who stood between him and Isabella fell quickly, efficiently. Finally, he reached the room where she was held. He kicked the door open, gun raised, and saw her, tied to a chair, bruised but alive, and his heart simultaneously broke and rebuilt itself. Isabella. Min-ho, it's a trap. Lights flooded the warehouse. Sang-hoon appeared with 30 of his own men, all armed, all positioned to cut off escape routes. Kang Min-ho, Sang-hoon called out mockingly. So predictable, love makes you weak. Min-ho didn't lower his weapon. Let her go. Give me your empire. Done. The word rang out before Isabella could protest. Take everything. Every business, every territory, every asset I control. Just let her walk out of here. Sang-hoon laughed. You actually mean it. You'd give up everything for this woman. Without hesitation. Isabella's heart shattered. Min-ho, no, you can't. I can and I will. He looked at her, and his eyes held infinite tenderness. I told you, Isabella, I'll burn the world down for you. How touching, Sang-hoon said, but I'm afraid I've changed my mind. I think I'll keep your empire and kill you both. Leaving survivors leads to revenge, after all. The warehouse erupted into gunfire. Min-ho dove toward Isabella, cutting her bonds with swift movements while his men engaged Sang-hoon's forces. Bullets ricocheted off concrete, screams echoed through the space, and Min-ho's only focus was getting Isabella behind cover. Stay down, he commanded, shoving her behind a stack of crates. Don't move until I come back for you. Where are you going? To end this, he kissed her hard, desperate. I love you if something happens. Nothing happens, you come back to me. She gripped his jacket. You promised me forever, Min-ho. Don't you dare break that promise. Something fierce blazed in his eyes. Then forever it is. He disappeared into the chaos, and Isabella could only watch as her husband became something terrifying, efficient and deadly, moving through Sang-hoon's men like death itself. She saw him take 3 bullets, saw him stumble but keep moving, saw him fight through pain and rage toward a single goal. Sang-hoon. They met in the center of the warehouse, and the fight was brutal. Sang-hoon was older but skilled, and he matched Min-ho's fury with cold calculation. They crashed through crates, exchanged blows that would have killed lesser men, fought with the desperation of enemies who knew only one would survive. Blood poured from Min-ho's wounds, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not when Isabella's life depended on him winning. Not when everything he'd built, everything he'd become, led to this moment. Finally, he got the upper hand. Sang-hoon fell, and Min-ho stood over him with his gun aimed at his enemy's heart. "You were right," Min-ho said quietly. "Love made me vulnerable, but it also made me stronger than you'll ever understand. It gave me something worth fighting for beyond power, beyond empire." He pulled the trigger. "That's why you lose." The gunshot echoed, then silence fell. Sang-hoon's men, seeing their leader dead, began surrendering. Min-ho's team secured the area, but Min-ho only had eyes for one person. Isabella. She ran to him, catching him as he stumbled. "You're hurt. Oh God, Min-ho, you're bleeding." "I'm fine." He held her face in his blood-stained hands. "Are you hurt? Did he touch you?" I'm okay because of you." Min-ho pulled her against him, and Isabella felt him shaking. This man who just killed dozens, who'd walked through bullets and violence without flinching, was trembling as he held her. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered into her hair. "When they told me you were taken, I lost my mind. Nothing mattered except getting you back." "You found me." Isabella pulled back to look at his face, seeing the cuts and bruises, the blood soaking through his shirt. "But you're hurt. We need to get you to a hospital." Later, he kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips, desperate touches like he needed to confirm she was real. "First, we get you somewhere safe." Taeyong approached carefully. "Boss, we need to move. Police will be here soon, and we need to clean this up." Min-ho nodded, then swept Isabella into his arms despite his injuries. She protested, but he silenced her with a look. "Let me hold you. I need to know you're safe." The ride back to the mansion was tense. Min-ho's personal doctor met them there, immediately working on his wounds while Isabella hovered anxiously. 3 bullets had grazed him, but none had hit anything vital. He'd have scars, but he'd live. "You're lucky," the doctor said, stitching the worst gash. "A few centimeters over and this would have been fatal." "I'm not lucky." Min-ho's eyes found Isabella's. "I'm blessed. God kept me alive to get back to her." Later, after the doctor left and they were finally alone in their bedroom, Isabella helped Min-ho into bed. He winced but pulled her down beside him, refusing to let go. "I meant what I said," he murmured. "I would have given Sang-hoon everything if it meant saving you. Your men, your organization, everyone who depends on you, they would have been killed." "I know," his arms tightened around her. "But I can rebuild empires. I can't rebuild you. There's only one Isabella and she's mine." Tears streamed down her face. "That's the most beautiful and terrifying thing anyone's ever said to me." "Get used to it. You married a monster who loves you more than his own life." He tilted her face up. "I will always choose you, Isabella. Over power, over money, over everything. You and Seo-yeon, you're what matters." She kissed him gently, careful of his split lip. "I love you, so much it scares me." "Then be scared with me." He echoed his words from weeks ago. "Let's build a life together, even if it's terrifying." The next morning, Seo-yeon came running into their room, launching herself onto the bed before Eomyeonim could stop her. She froze when she saw her father's bandaged state. "Appa, you're hurt." Her lower lip trembled. "I'm okay, baby." Min-ho pulled her close with his good arm. "Appa got into a fight, but he won, and Mummy is safe. That's all that matters." Seo-yeon looked at Isabella with wide eyes. "Bad people took Mummy." "Yes, but Appa saved me." Isabella stroked the little girl's hair. "He'll always protect us." "Because we're a family," Seo-yeon said firmly. "And families protect each other." Minho's expression softened completely. That's right, we're a family now, forever. Over the following weeks, Minho recovered while his organization secured the power vacuum left by Sang-hoon's death. Several smaller groups tried to challenge him, but his reputation, the man who'd walked through an army to save his wife, made most think twice. Isabella threw herself into settling into her new life. She'd taken a leave of absence from the hospital, needing time to process everything that had happened. MUMMYYY continued her security training, now more insistent than ever. You survived once because Minho saved you, the older woman said during a shooting practice session. Next time, you need to be able to save yourself. I hope there won't be a next time. There's always a next time in this world. MUMMYYY's expression was serious. But you're strong, Isabella, stronger than you know. You didn't break when they took you. You stayed calm, stayed smart. That's what keeps you alive. One evening, 6 weeks after the kidnapping, Isabella stood in the bathroom staring at a pregnancy test. Positive. Her hand trembled as she touched her still flat stomach. She'd suspected for a week. The exhaustion, the nausea, the way certain smells made her queasy. But seeing the confirmation made it real. A baby, Minho's baby. Fear and joy warred inside her. This world was dangerous. They'd already proven that enemies would use her to hurt Minho. What would they do with a child? But beneath the fear was something stronger, a fierce protective love for the life growing inside her. This baby was made from the impossible love between a mafia boss and the woman who'd stumbled into his world. This baby was hope. Isabella, Minho's voice came from the bedroom. Are you okay? She stepped out, the test hidden behind her back. He was sitting on the bed, his shirt off, revealing healing scars from the warehouse fight. He looked at her with such open affection that her heart melted. I need to tell you something. His expression immediately shifted to concern. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, at least I don't think it is. She took a breath. Minho, I'm pregnant. He went absolutely still. Pregnant? Yes, about 6 weeks, I think. She watched his face anxiously. I know this is fast and given everything that happened. Minho was across the room in 3 strides, catching her face in his hands. Say it again. I'm pregnant. We're having a baby. Something broke in his expression, control, fear, the carefully maintained walls. His eyes filled with tears he didn't try to hide. We're having a baby, he repeated, voice rough with emotion. Are you happy? I know it's soon and your world is dangerous. He silenced her with a kiss that was tender and desperate all at once. When he pulled back, he was smiling through tears. Happy? Isabella, you've given me everything. First yourself, then Seo-yeon's mother, now this. His hand moved to her stomach, spread wide over where their child grew. You've made me believe in futures again, in family and love. Of course I'm happy. Isabella felt her own tears fall. I'm scared. What happened with Sang-hoon? What if someone else comes after us, after our baby? Then I'll kill them too. His voice was absolutely certain. I will burn this city to the ground before I let anyone hurt you or our children. You and Seo-yeon and this baby, you're my everything, Isabella, my world, and I will protect my world with everything I am. Even if it means giving up your empire. Especially then. He pulled her close, careful of her stomach. I've been thinking about that, actually, about stepping back, letting Taeyong take over most operations. I want to be present for this baby, for Seo-yeon, for you. I want to be a husband and father, not just a boss. Isabella pulled back to look at him. You do that. I'd do anything for you. He kissed her forehead. You've changed me, Isabella, made me want to be better, made me believe I could be more than what my father raised me to be. His hand stroked her cheek. Help me build something good, something worth leaving to our children. Not an empire of violence, but a family of love. How do we do that? Together. His smile was soft, genuine. We figure it out together, make mistakes together, build a future together. He knelt slowly, pressing his lips to her stomach. I promise you, little one, I'll be the father you deserve. I'll keep you and your mother safe. I'll teach you to be strong but kind, powerful but gentle. He looked up at Isabella. And I'll love you every day of your life. Isabella's hand covered his on her stomach. We're really doing this, building a family in your world. Our world, he corrected, standing. It's ours now, and we'll make it safe for them. The next morning, Minho called a meeting with his core leadership. Isabella sat beside him, a first, as she'd never attended his business meetings before. The men looked surprised but respectful. "Things are changing," Minho announced without preamble. "My wife is pregnant with our second child. Sioyeon needs stability, Isabella needs safety, and I need to be present for my family." He paused. "I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations. Taeyang will assume control of most territories. I'll maintain oversight and handle major decisions, but I'm reducing my active involvement." Murmurs rippled through the room. Taeyang looked shocked. "Boss, are you sure? We need your leadership." "You'll have it when necessary. But my children need their father alive and present more than my organization needs me on the front lines." Minho's voice was firm. "I've built this empire. Now I'm going to protect what matters most, my family." An older member spoke up. "This makes you look weak. Our enemies will see it as an opportunity." "Let them try." Minho's smile was cold. "I'm not retiring, I'm prioritizing. Anyone who mistakes that for weakness will learn why I've stayed on top for 8 years. But I'm done sacrificing family for power." He looked at Isabella. "I almost lost her once. I won't risk it again by being too busy building an empire to protect what I've already built." After the meeting, Taeyang pulled Minho aside. "Boss, I'm honored by your trust, but are you really sure about this?" "More sure than I've been about anything except marrying her." Minho glanced at Isabella, who was talking with some of the other wives who'd been brought in for a separate announcement. "I was raised to believe power was everything. But what's the point of power if you're too dead or too busy to enjoy the life you've built?" "You really love her." "More than breathing." It wasn't an exaggeration. "She's my second chance, Taeyang, at humanity, at happiness, at being something more than my father's legacy. I'm not wasting it." That evening, Minho gathered his whole family, Isabella, Sioyeon, and his mother, for dinner. He'd cooked himself, or tried to, resulting in slightly burned bulgogi and perfect rice. "Appa tried his best," Sioyeon said diplomatically, making everyone laugh. After dinner, Minho stood and cleared his throat. "I have an announcement. Sioyeon, you're going to be a big sister." The little girl's eyes went wide. "Really? A real baby sister or brother?" "Really," Isabella confirmed, smiling. "In about 7 months." Sioyeon squealed and launched herself at Isabella, hugging her carefully. "I'm going to be the best big sister ever. I'll teach them everything. I'll protect them." "I know you will," Isabella said, holding her close. Myeonim's eyes glistened with tears. "Another grandchild, and this time I'll be here from the beginning." She looked at Minho. "Your father would be proud of the man you've become, not the boss, but the father." Minho's throat tightened. "I hope so." The months passed with surprising peace. Isabella's pregnancy progressed smoothly. Minho kept his promise, attending every doctor's appointment, reading pregnancy books with hilarious concentration, and treating Isabella like precious glass. "I can still walk, you know," she said when he tried to carry her up the stairs for the 3rd time that week. "I know, but I like carrying you," he nuzzled her neck. "Indulge me." Sioyeon was constantly talking to Isabella's growing belly, telling the baby stories and singing songs. Minho would watch them with such tenderness that Isabella sometimes caught him wiping his eyes. "Are you crying?" she teased one evening. "No, I have something in my eye." But he was smiling. "I'm just happy, Isabella, happier than I ever thought possible." True to his word, Minho had stepped back from most operations. He worked from home more, delegated responsibilities, and prioritized family time. There were still dangers. His world would always have dangers, but he'd fortified their home, increased security, and made it clear that anyone threatening his family would face consequences worse than death. When Isabella was 7 months pregnant, a rival group did try to make a move. But Minho handled it swiftly, brutally, and with such overwhelming force that it sent a message to everyone else. Kang Minho might be spending more time with his family, but he was still the most dangerous man in Seoul. "You didn't need to kill all of them," Taeyang said after, surveying the carnage. "Yes, I did." Minho's voice was cold. "They threatened to target my pregnant wife. They needed to understand what happens when you touch what's mine." The message was received. For the next 2 months, there were no attempts, no threats, just peace. Isabella went into labor on a Tuesday evening. Minho had been timing contractions for 3 hours, his usual control completely shattered by panic. We need to go. Now the hospital. Minho, we have time. Isabella breathed through another contraction. First Bobby's take a while. I don't care. You're not having our child in the car like some action movie. We're going now. The hospital room was private, luxurious, secured by his men. Minho refused to leave Isabella's side, holding her hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement in Korean and English. You're doing amazing, he kept saying. So strong, so beautiful, I love you so much. 12 hours later, their son was born. The moment Minho heard that first cry, he broke down completely, tears streaming down his face as the doctor placed their baby on Isabella's chest. A boy, Isabella whispered, exhausted but elated. We have a son. Minho touched his son's tiny hand, marveling when little fingers wrapped around his. He's perfect. You're perfect. He kissed Isabella's forehead. Thank you for giving me this, for giving me everything. They named him Minjun, a name meaning bright and talented, a hope for who he'd become. Seoyeon visited later, her eyes wide as she carefully held her baby brother. He's so small, she whispered. I'll protect him forever, Appa, just like you protect us. Minho's chest tightened. I know you will, princess, we all will. That night, after everyone had left and Isabella was sleeping, Minho held his son and stared out the hospital window at Seoul. A year ago, he'd been alone, powerful but empty, respected but unloved. Then a little girl called a stranger Mummy, and everything changed. I was wrong about so many things, he murmured to Minjun. I thought power was everything, that love was weakness, that family was a liability. He touched his son's soft cheek. But your mother taught me the truth. Love is strength, family is purpose, and power means nothing if you have no one to share it with. Isabella stirred, opened her eyes. What are you telling him? The truth, that he and his sister and you're my empire now, my kingdom, and I'll spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift. Isabella smiled sleepily. Come to bed, my dangerous husband. Your empire needs rest. Minho carefully placed Minjun in his hospital bassinet, then climbed into the narrow bed beside Isabella, pulling her against him. I love you, Isabella Kang, my wife, my heart, my everything. I love you too, my monster who became my man. 3 months later, the mansion was filled with the sounds of family, Seoyeon's laughter, Minjun's baby babbles, Iamyeonim's gentle singing. Isabella had returned to work part-time at the hospital, loving her career but always eager to come home to her family. Minho had kept his promise. He still ran his organization, but from a distance, prioritizing family above all else. His men respected him more for it, not less. The man who'd walked through bullets for love was far more terrifying than any cold-blooded killer. One evening, after the children were asleep, Minho and Isabella sat on their bedroom balcony, watching Seoul's lights. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. Marrying me, entering this world. Isabella turned to him, taking his face in her hands. Not once, not even for a second. She kissed him softly. You gave me a family, Minho. You gave me love I never thought I'd have. You made me a mother twice over. How could I regret that? I'm still dangerous, still violent when necessary, still the monster underneath the husband and father. You're my monster, she smiled. And I love every part of you, the dangerous parts, the gentle parts, the parts that would burn the world down for us, all of it. Minho pulled her into his lap, holding her close. I waited my whole life for you. I just didn't know it until Seoyeon called you Mummy and you didn't run away. Best kidnapping of my heart I ever experienced. He laughed, the sound genuine and free. I love you, Isabella. Every day I'll love you more than the day before. That's my promise. And I'll hold you to it. They sat together as night deepened, two people who'd found each other against impossible odds, who'd built a family from danger and desire, who'd proven that love could exist even in the darkest places. Below them, Seoul pulsed with life, a city of millions, each with their own story. But here, in this moment, their story was the only one that mattered. A mafia boss and the woman who'd tamed him, a father and his children, a husband who'd learned that true power came not from fear, but from love. Forever, Minho whispered against her hair. Forever, Isabella agreed. And in the nursery down the hall, 2 children slept peacefully, protected by a man who'd proven he'd destroy anyone who threatened his family, and loved by a woman who'd chosen courage over fear. Their story was far from over. There would be more challenges, more dangers, more moments of fear. But they'd face it all together, the criminal and his bride, the monster and his beauty, the family built from an impossible moment when a little girl gripped a stranger's legs and said one word that changed everything. Mummy. The end. Thank you for watching this K-Fairytales story, besties. If you loved Minho and Isabella's journey from danger to devotion, smash that like button and subscribe for more intense romance stories. Drop a comment telling us what your favorite moment was. Would you have said yes to Minho's proposal after just 6 weeks? Share this video with anyone who loves protective mafia bosses and fearless heroines who see.